few months ago, we got a call from a nut tree farmer. We grow a lot of nuts in the Central Valley of California. Walnuts, almonds, lots of almonds. Mostly walnuts and almonds. There's probably some other types of tree nuts that we grow. Anyways, this tree nut farmer calls. He's known my partner for a long, long time. I think they went to high school together. So he called my partner Danny, and he said, "Hey," he said, "I'm looking at buying a new piece of property. I want to put a nut tree orchard on it." He told us where it was at. It's over in eastern San Joaquin County. He said, "I'm talking to the owner." He said, "I'm trying to figure out if this orchard's going to pencil based on the purchase price." He said, "But I'm a little worried because I think in this area that I'm in this part of the county, that I might have an issue with some vernal pools. And so I want to know, can you guys help me? Can you help me with that? Can you help me figure out what I got to do here?" And so if you're not from this part of California, you may not know what a vernal pool is. A vernal pool is basically a seasonal pool, so it's like a seasonal wetland. And the reason they're important is they have these little pools of water are ringed by different types of plants and wildflowers, which some of those are protected or endangered species. And then there's also, believe it or not, a little freshwater shrimp that lives in these pools of water, and that they are an endangered species. So, and these pools really only exist for part of the year. If you're not from Central California, you may not know our climate. So we have very hot, dry summers, and then we have cool, wet winters. So these pools basically exist in the wintertime. These seasonal pools, they're actually very beautiful in the early spring. But one of the challenges with these vernal pools is if it's not springtime, they can be very hard to see. So in the spring, it's pretty easy to identify these pools. They'll have standing water, shallow water, and they're usually ringed by these wildflowers. So they're fairly easy to identify. But every other time of the year, it's very hard to pick them out. So when this nut tree farmer called us, of course, it was late summer. It wasn't spring. It wasn't early spring. And he said, "Hey," he said, "I got to know how much of this parcel is covered in vernal pools and where are they at, because that's going to change, where I put my orchard and how I lay out my farm roads and my irrigation." And so he called my partner and he said, "Hey, here's what I need help with." He said, "Number one, I need help finding a biologist, because you need a biologist to go out at some point and mark these pools." He said, "Number two, once I get the biologist to go out and mark the pools, I need you guys to come and survey the pools." He said, "And then I need a map that with an aerial photo that shows me where these pools are at, and then I need you guys to help me with a road layout for the orchard." He said, "Then I can figure out the irrigation and where I'm going to put the trees and all that." So he said, "Can you help me with that?" We said, "Yeah, absolutely. We can help you with all that." We recommended a biologist, got him in touch with the biologist that we work with on a fairly regular basis, and told him, "Hey, let us do some initial poking around here, and then we'll get you a proposal to do this other work you need." So we started looking just at some historical aerial photography, just to try and get an idea of what we might be dealing with, if there were vernal pools on the site, and if so, how many. And we fairly quickly came to the realization that about 65% of this parcel, so 2/3, was probably in a vernal pool. Not one, multiple vernal pools, but 65% of the area was probably covered in vernal pools. And the other thing we realized is the way these vernal pools were dispersed across the property, it was going to be hard to get a good chunk of farmable area. So in other words, the vernal pools weren't all grouped or clustered in one area. They were kind of spread fairly evenly across the parcel. And so we got to looking around, and we realized that in this particular part of the county, this was basically the only piece of pasture ground that was left. So all the parcels around this particular parcel had already been planted with either grapes or nut trees. And if you're not a farmer from this part of the country, you may not know this, but nut trees and vineyards are worth a lot more money than pasture ground. So as soon as it's reasonably profitable to convert pasture ground to nut trees or vineyards, that's what happens. And so for some reason, this piece of ground hadn't been converted. And after we started doing this little investigation on the vernal pools, we realized why, right? So just part of this story is, you can run cows on land with vernal pools. So that's not illegal. The cows can graze that land. And so the reason this particular parcel was probably still grazing land and not nut trees is because if you wanted to convert to nut trees, there just wasn't enough land left to plant to make it profitable at the price that the buyer wanted for the parcel. So we shared that information with the nut tree farmer, and he basically said, yeah, that's what I was worried about. We said, look, it may not make sense for us to move forward. You got to take a step back and evaluate if this is even worth the money based on our preliminary investigation. Big chunk of this property you won't be able to farm. You're not going to be able to put nut trees on it. And so he ended up not buying the parcel, which was fine. And we didn't charge him for that. He was a friend of ours, friend of my partner's. We just went ahead and did that work for him. So why am I telling you that story? I think it's a great story. It's one of my favorite stories from our first couple years here at RH. And so I want to tell you why. I want to tell you what are the lessons. Okay. So the first lesson, I think, for anybody that's involved in real estate investment, if you're buying or selling property either as an investment or as part of a business, there's an important lesson here, and here's the lesson. If you think you found a secret gold mine in real estate, you're probably wrong. There's probably a reason why somebody hasn't already done what you're thinking about doing. Now, I don't want to steal everybody's inspiration or everybody's thunder. I'm not saying that there aren't good deals to be found in real estate. There are good deals to be found in real estate, but you got to look really hard, and then usually you got to, in order to get a high rate of return on a real estate investment, you usually, there's some work involved in that. Okay, so it's very rare that you can just scoop up a piece of property and just turn around and make a bunch of money with it. Usually the value of a parcel is reflected to some degree in its purchase price, right? So in this particular case, what probably happened is the nut tree farmer looked at this piece of pasture land that was for sale, saw the sale price and thought, that's a great price for, I think it was about 120 acres. That's a great price for 120 acres, right? But what he realized after we did some initial due diligence, helped him do that, is he didn't have 120 acres of land he could put nut trees on. He had about 50 acres of land he could put nut trees on, and he had about 70 acres of land that had to stay in vernal pools. So then when he started doing the math, he realized, you know what, the 50 acres isn't even worth, it's worth less than what they're selling it for, right? And so part of that, what I'm trying to teach you, part of the lesson is, if you think somebody's giving you a screaming good deal on a piece of real estate, you're probably wrong. There's probably a reason. That sale price probably reflects the actual value of the property. Now, there are situations where you may have some unique knowledge or some unique market expertise or, a unique team where you can realize some value that your typical buyer might not. And then in that case, you may have a secret gold mine. I caution people, especially people that are new to real estate, that if somebody's trying to sell them that, if the seller's broker's trying to tell you they've got a secret gold mine for you, be very cautious, right? Be very cautious. And then the second thing is you want to hire the right consultant. Okay, so in this case, this gentleman, this nut tree farmer, he called somebody he knew, somebody he trusted, my partner. We were able to help him answer the question without spending a bunch of money. And that's what a good consultant does. Now, sometimes you have to spend some money on due diligence. In this particular case, it wasn't a lot of effort for my partner and I. We spent an hour or two looking at some land records and looking at some historical aerial photography, and we had a pretty good answer for this guy. Now, if it would have been a different situation, if we would have looked at this and said, hey, we think maybe 20% or 30% of this is vernal pools, and he said, okay, well, I think I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the deal. I'm going to hire the biologist, and then I need your help with these other things. And of course, we would have charged him for that, because now things are getting serious, and it's going to take some time and effort on our part. But that's the other lesson here: is just hire a good consultant. If you're going to buy or sell ag land in eastern San Joaquin County or Stanislaus County, you need to know about vernal pools, and you need to have a consultant that knows about vernal pools. One of the things that particular story did is it inspired me to learn a lot more about the protected species and environmental regulations that I deal with in our 2 or 3 counties that we work in, because I need to know that to be able to help my farmers. You know, my farmer clients need help understanding those regulations, and so that's something that my company has made an effort to learn more about in the last couple of years. So anyways, it's a really good story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it teaches surveyors and private land planners a little bit about how they can add value, you know, get a little bit out of their narrow kind of domain of where they normally fix problems. You know, like I'm not in the business of identifying vernal pools, but I am in the real estate business, and we do work a lot with farmers, and in this particular case, like not only did we help this guy find the expert he needed, but then we were able to answer just some basic due diligence questions for him, just with you know, the kind of the core skill set that we already had, looking at land records, analyzing satellite photography, aerial photography, that kind of thing. So there you go. It's a good story, and hopefully I'll get to share more of these kind of stories with you guys.